On YouTube, welcome to episode 54 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. Today we got about a 33-minute episode. Sorry I didn't get any episodes out last week. The end of the month is usually always very busy for me with my job, and not only that, one of the reasons I actually wasn't able to get on this past week was because I actually got a brand new computer. So there's still some things I'm trying to get the kinks out with it, specifically with getting my Bluetooth headset working. I've been having some issues with it, so that was one of the factors in why I didn't get any episodes out. And I'm actually doing this on my old computer just so I can keep the videos going. Without any further ado, we're just going to be going ahead and jumping right into this. We're going to be grabbing the polished half slabs, and for whatever reason it actually didn't even grab them, so we need to go back and get that again. Actually, the smooth stone slab. There we go. And we're just going to replace that out probably with that darker block. Just want to make sure you're using the same one. Alright, we're in good shape. So you can see I'm going to start right here on the cut line. This is right where the neck is ending. And basically what we're building out right now is an outline for the neck. Because those of you that have seen Star Trek The Next Generation will know that the Enterprise D, the saucer, can separate. So that's kind of what we're going to be working on right at this time. But we've got a couple of things we're going to be doing. We're going to be making some changes to the neck outline on the top side of the saucer, like I just pointed out. And then we're also going to be doing some detailing on our corridors. And then we're also going to be doing some prep work for layering for the outer side of the top side of the saucer section. You can see I went one up there and I went all the way into the cut line. Now we're going to do the same thing on this right side here. I'm not necessarily sure if that's exactly what we're going to be settling up on. I could be wrong, but I think we're going to be making some changes to that. Because that's just not really working, going at that angle. At least progressing up with every single row. What we need to do to keep this accurate is going with the cut line, and that's what was giving us some problems before. But even right here, you can see this is going to be an issue because we're not building up high enough. We need to go up a couple of rows before we actually start building out the line basically that's going to be going atop the across the top portion of the backbone of the neck. So this row right here, we're going to have to get rid of that and put back what we had. And I need to do the same thing on the left side here. I think with this, really the important thing is going with our cut to keep our pattern intact, because if we start venturing away from that like we just did, it's going to give us some problems. And we also got to go a couple rows up, because as you just saw, if we don't, one of the reasons I stopped ahead of time is because that row is actually going to intersect right with the shuttle bay doors. And this cut line should actually be a couple of rows above it. We'll see if this is going to be high enough, but we may end up having to go even one more row up. Because I'm not necessarily convinced that I've actually gone high enough. And I'm sure some people are probably wondering, how are you making this determination? The reason for that is I just don't have it up on the screen, is that I'm looking at a 3D rendering of the Enterprise D in this specific area of the neck. And I'm looking at that outline indentation that differentiates the neck with the saucer section. And I'm just trying to build something that looks exactly like that. This is one of the reasons why I say keep that reference up, because that reference is going to be your guide in keeping your ship accurate. Sometimes you just can't help it. You got to do a little bit of a trial and error period before you fall on where you need to fall, basically. Alright, so we're just going to go up a couple of rows until we get to that first white concrete row. Again, going with the cut line, every block that we replace, we're just going to be pretty much swapping it out. Okay, so far we're in good shape. So really, the main question to ask is, do we do this row here going along this white concrete row? That may be high enough. We're going to try that out. And this isn't something necessarily that we really need to do right now, because this is falling on exterior detailing. But this was just something that I was just happened to throw in while I was working on the ship. But until we get the outside done, you're really not going to, or at least the outside shape of the remainder of the ship in the saucer section, you're really not going to see a lot of detailing outside of this. Other than one or two minor things, it's really not until we get later in the build that we're really going to be getting into the meat of doing a lot of the detailing. One of the things, this is something I talked about too, is the Aztecing on the ship. I haven't fully decided yet. I've actually seen a couple of models that have done variations with the Aztecing where it's not as prominent going throughout the ship. But what has stopped me from going in that direction is I haven't gotten enough source material or reference material in order to pull that off throughout the whole ship. Like, I've been able to find bits and pieces of like the neck or the engine that other people have done where they had Aztecing but wasn't as much. So that might be something that we end up doing, but at this point I'm not really sure if I'm gonna do it yet. Alright, so we're getting the block of quartz here. You can see that really all we're doing now is above this inner oval on the upper side of the saucer, we're just adding a layer. We're just going to do this going all the way around. Now, my main reason for doing this is I'm trying to anticipate the layering. We might have to add maybe even one more layer, because, and you'll see what I mean as we close in our roof on the saucer, we don't want it to be all the same size or all the same height, not the size but the height, because if you look at the Enterprise D, it has more of like an oval dome shape on the top. Now, it's not as deep on the upper side, but it does have it. So that's going to be something that we're going to try to replicate as much as we can. I'm not going to lie, this is probably one of the most challenging things on the build that we're going to be doing. But with that being said, if you want to see what the end result looks like, just check out my teaser for the Enterprise D, and that'll give you a fairly good idea of what this thing is going to look like when it's done. Even a couple of episodes for Star Trek Day I had put out, I showed another teaser of where I'm at currently with the ship. So we've definitely gotten some progress done on this thing, but it's going to be a slow burner. It's going to be just a ton of work that we're going to be doing. I've been getting some people dropping comments on different areas of the ship that they'd like to see me do. I had somebody drop a very creative idea, and that was a barber shop, because in one of the episodes of Next Generation, Worf got a haircut. That could be something that we can do, because we've got a lot of room to do stuff like that. Now, I've just got to go in and find the episode where they did it and see if I can find a screenshot of it to use it as a reference. But the point is that we're just going to have a ton of room here to do pretty much everything that we want to do. It's definitely not a bad thing. right. So now we're going to be going along that gray outline that's directly above our corridors. And we're going to be doing a row, well, of the light gray, I should say. And then we're going to be using the regular gray blocks that pretty much look black of the gray concrete, and we're just going to be doing the same thing. We're just going to be doing a row going all the way around. Because again, this is going to help us out later when we're doing the layering. This more than likely is going to end up being the phaser bank strip that wraps around the top portion of the saucer section. And it's also going to double because we'll be able to use this as a layering point. And you'll see what I mean when we fill in the top side of the saucer section. But we'll more than likely cut the height after we do this going all the way around. We're probably going to come back with white half slabs, the quartz half slabs, and do that. So this way just the top portion of the gray is sticking out. So far, we're looking pretty good, though. I'm actually kind of excited because I'm really, now that I've got my gaming PC, I got a beefy computer, and one of the things I'm excited about is that I'm going to be able to use that new graphics with the ray tracing. Now, I have to play with it a little bit before I start doing episodes because so far I haven't been able to load up a world from scratch. So I need to mess with that a little bit, but that's going to be something. I keep an eye out for that in the future because that's something I'm going to do. Literally, the only two things right now that are holding me back from doing it is I need to get my microphone working on my new computer, and then I also need to figure out why my gamepad doesn't work with Minecraft on the PC. Because it's weird, like, I can go on Steam and I can link, like, for example, Epic Game Stores to Steam. Even though it's a different gaming service, I can have the app open up through Steam, and I can have my controller configuration run off of Steam or through the Epic Game Store from Steam. For whatever reason with the PC version of Minecraft, they won't let you do that. And I've tried to go in and sync my controller and program it to the Minecraft version, and it's just kind of giving me some issues. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not overly fond of playing Minecraft with a mouse and keyboard. I've gotten very spoiled in using a regular game controller, but I'll get it figured out. But regardless, once I do figure that out, don't expect to see like a ton of mods on here, because that's one of the things I've been trying to stick to, that everything that you guys see me do is stuff that you can do on your basic builds on Minecraft, maybe with getting or buying one or two texture packs. And actually, in this case, it was really only the grid pixel pack. And if you're not sure the setup on how to do, and you're still new to this, look through my videos. It was one of the episodes on the Cerritos. It's the I'll have to actually go back and look through the episode count, but it was during the Cerritos build. I had one of the episodes labeled a grid pixel texture pack. So that's something that you're going to want to do. So this way you have the same setup that I do, because I do show you which skin sets that or texture packs you do need to have the exact same setup that I have. But I think we'll be in pretty good shape. Now, you're probably going to notice here, and I want to pause, take a second to talk about this. That's why I hesitated, because going along this backside here, as you probably noticed, I didn't do a row of the gray. And there's a reason for that. That's because this inner side here is going to be where our shuttle bay is. So really, you're only doing this gray outline on the outside portion of this line and this line. On the inside, just do a row of the white quartz just like I did. Yeah, no, getting back into this really briefly, and then we're just going to jump right back into the tutorial. If you're not sure on which episode that is and you want to have the same setup that I do, drop a comment below and I will drop the link, so this way you can get the tutorial on how to have the setup with the grid pixel texture pack, so you can have the same setup with the blocks that I'm using, because that was one of the reasons on why I got that, because it gives you a lot of blocks that look very similar to computer panels, and that's going to help us in fleshing this ship out, but without having to use mods. So that'll be pretty cool. But you never know. I might end up one day downloading a mod on PC if I ever get everything working where I want it to, like a Star Trek mod or something, like to really kind of deck out one of my builds. But that'll be like an after the fact, and that'll be like a separate episode that I'll do, and that'll be for those of you that have PC and want to be able to do the same thing yourselves. But definitely very excited, regardless of the stuff that I have coming for the channel. Where we talked a little bit about that, and even some of the future builds. I've had a ton of people asking me what my next build's going to be, and more than likely at this point it probably will be Voyager, but still, if I haven't built the ship that you suggested, don't let that discourage you. Just be sure to drop a comment in the comments section, because I do see them, and I look at everybody's comments when I'm getting ready to build my next ship, and that's honestly why I'm getting more than likely going to do Voyager next, because that is my #1 requested build. Now, also talking a little bit about some of the stuff we have coming up in the future, as we make our way towards getting to 1,000 subscribers, which is my main goal right now. It's important to have a goal on this channel, and once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're going to be doing a tutorial on the U.S.S. Enterprise A from Star Trek Beyond. This was something that I promised to do in the past, and I never got around to doing it, because honestly at the time I'm glad that I waited, because the tutorial honestly would not have come out that good back when I was promising it, because that was before I'd even started any of them. But still, it's something that I haven't forgotten, and I know that there are people that want to see that ship. So if you want that, help me out, and share the links for this channel. People that that maybe like shipbuilding, maybe turn them on to this channel. And once we hit 1,000 subscribers, you can expect me to do that tutorial. And to be honest with you, more than likely what's going to happen once we hit 1,000, I'm probably just going to release it regardless of what ship I'm working on. So what I'm ultimately going to end up doing, as I'm getting closer to 1,000 subscribers, I'm just going to start working on the ship. And don't be surprised if you see me releasing teasers for it to get people hyped up for it as we get closer to 1,000. But yeah, that's some of the stuff we got going on. Very excited about it. Honestly, I still can't believe I've gotten as many subscribers as I have just for doing this stuff on Minecraft. I've said it before that I've always thought that after I did the Disco Era Enterprise, that was kind of going to be a one and done, and people weren't really going to be feeling some of the other ship things that I wanted to build, or just other builds in general. And I've been pleasantly surprised. I've had a lot of positive feedback on my YouTube channel on these builds, and a lot of demand from people asking me to keep this stuff going, and I've also had a ton of fun doing it, so I don't see any reason why I won't. I know that there's some people have asked me when I'm going to get back into Starship Evo, and again, I'm just kind of waiting for the developers to put something out to really make me want to get in the game. I know that right now they're working on adding like a fuel system, which I think is great. Hopefully they don't make things too complicated on the level of Space Engineers, because I always thought that was an appeal that Starship Evo had, but I still think that the game needs a lot more to really get me back into it. But I will ultimately get back into it, because I love that game. I love the fact that you can build stuff like on Minecraft, but you can actually use it. They just need a lot more building parts where I can do interiors, and different types of building pieces where I can really flesh out my builds. And not only that, once that build's done, I want things to be able to use it for, being able to go to different planets, trade, farm, fight other alien species, things like that. I always said that, like, if they took Starship Evo and merged it with No Man's Sky and Minecraft, that would kind of be like a best case scenario. Um, so anyway, you can see here, in a lot of this, we're going to be jumping a little bit ahead now, getting back into our build. A lot of this stuff I'm about to point out, I've actually already suggested that you guys do. So if you've already done this and made these color changes on your corridors, just ignore what I'm talking about and fast forward to the next part. But for those of you that have not, what we're going to be doing now is changing the color palette. And the flooring, as you can see going back here, this is what it looked like before. And we're going to be switching out the two sides, not the far left or the right where it's got the white terracotta, but the next row in that's actually over the gray. We're going to be swapping that out with blue, and then in the very middle we're going to be swapping that out with cyan. And now on the walls, we're going to be leaving these gray strips, but everywhere where there's white terracotta, we're going to be swapping that out for white concrete. And then in our ceiling, you should already have the light gray along your roof. But if you do have the white terracotta on either side of your sea lanterns, you're going to be swapping that out for the light gray concrete on either side. And you're going to want to do this going all the way around your primary circular corridor as well as the secondary circular corridor. Now, this isn't something I'm going to be doing live. I think I'm going to do a panel here, and then we're just going to move on to the next section of the show. Because really, we're not rebuilding anything, we're just doing a color change. And those of you that may not necessarily want to rebuild this because it's going to take a minute, trust me, I feel you. I've been there and done it. But at the same time, if you want your corridors to match what I have based on the picture with the thumbnail for our corridors and what we just saw here in this little area, make that change. But here's the other thing too. You're not set to what I'm doing here. Everything that you're seeing me do here is more of a suggestion on what you could do with your ship. But at the end of the day, if what I'm doing, you feel that maybe there's a change that you want to make to it, feel free to do it. And this is why I show these things, so that you can see maybe multiple ways of approaching things, because everybody's going to have a different opinion on what they want to add and how they want to do it. There might be some people that think, well, you know what, that white terracotta actually looks a lot better than the white concrete because it, you know, kind of matches a little bit more of the cream. Me, on the other hand, I think that after getting it down, it's just too dark. It's not that light cream color enough that it should be. But I think it was worth trying. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm considering on the floor, I'm either gonna make it, rather than having that stripe down the middle, at one point or another, I'm either gonna be switching the floor to all blue or all of the cyan. I just haven't decided what I want to do. And I noticed that as I was watching episodes of The Next Generation, that there was a slight variation with that, and I wanted trying to make it match up a little bit. But regardless, you're going to see this stuff and you're going to experience it yourself as you go. There's just no way to avoid it. That ultimately, and basically what I'm getting at, is that there's going to be alterations that you have to make to your ship. You're going to throw something down, you're going to decide that it's just not coming out the way that you want it to, or it's just not working, or maybe it's just, in this case, it's not staying as true as you think as it should be, and you just have to make those changes. But at the same time, you live and you learn, and this experience is going to help us going forward, because now I know that building with the white terracotta isn't necessarily something that I want to do, because it didn't give me the shade that I really wanted. So going forward, I'm pretty much going to avoid it. So I want to rewind here just a little bit so you can see where my starting off point is going to be. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3. This is the third ring on the underside here. We're going to be replicating this, but on the upper side. This is where I was talking about in the last couple of episodes that you're going to see me cheat. This is exactly what I mean, that I'm going to be taking previous templates and using them over again. So this way I do not have to go to the pixel circle generator and do it from scratch. We're going to try to work a little bit smarter and not harder. Because think about it, all we have to do is get our starting point lined up, which is exactly what we're doing right now. It's one back from the white terracotta line. We're going going up 3 blocks. On that third block is going to be our starting point, and all we're doing is just looking down at our template and just rebuilding that. Fairly straightforward. If you really wanted to, you could, from these blocks, build out to the middle to get your dimensions, but I don't see a need in it. I really don't, when we already have our outline laid out for us, and it'll make it a little bit easier because we just have to look down to see where we need to make our cut lines. You see I'm building this just a little bit higher up as opposed to our row here where our phaser banks are going to be, because this row is going to be a little bit higher. Again, I'm trying to anticipate the layering on the saucer. Now, there may be one or two slight changes that we make to it, but this is going to be pretty close. This is, you know, one of the first times I've really built a ship this way, and I gotta be honest, I'm actually surprised with how well this came out, because a lot of this stuff that you're seeing me doing with the layering ahead of time is my best guess on how I think the layering is going to have to go, just based on kind of how it's gone so far. You can see I'm doing that straight line there just to get a guess on where that's going to be, and that'll actually work out fine, because this row that we're adding, we can cut that row in half with a half slab. This way it won't feel like it's so high up. But that's going to be all filled in. So once we do this oval, everything in between the oval here that we're about to build and the outline with our phaser banks, we're going to be filling that in at that height of that straight line that we just added. So I'm just going to refresher there on my starting point to make sure that I'm matching up. There's other things that you can do too here to make sure that your stuff matches up. There's other things that you can do too, like doing a straight line going down, just to double check and make sure that it matches up. But I don't really feel the need to do all that, because this is not the first time that I've done a circle or an oval in this manner. I've done this a couple of times on a few other builds where I've just reused the same outline. So for that reason, you won't see me doing a straight row going upwards, but you will see me maybe doing a block or two, placing them down to know where I need to stop. If you want to adapt some of these traits, feel free to go for it, or build it the way that you feel that you need to. I've also had people in the past where, like, will message me and say, well, you know, I'm building this a different way, but I'm getting stuck. Can you help me on it? And don't get me wrong, I will try to help you if I can, but this is the other thing too, that I've kind of gotten set in my ways on how I build my ships. And if you're running into a lot of problems and you're doing it a different way, don't be surprised if I can only do so much. And this is why I show these builds in real time rather than skipping ahead, so you can see everything that I'm doing while I'm doing it, so that you can replicate this yourselves. You don't see me counting out these rows and everything, but I am showing you my starting off points, because I don't know about the rest of you when building, but I'm a very visual person. This is the best way that I learn. And I like having this visual reference to go off of, because it's easier for me rather than looking at a stupid diagram all the time. And also, not only that, I don't know if I ever would do diagrams and stuff like that, because it would just take a tremendous amount of time to do all that. And I'm sure some of you have noticed these ships, when I'm building them, I do them on the fly. I don't have any blueprints. I just look at what I'm building, and I just try to make it into a 3D shape, and that's it. That's the best way I can describe it. And I've talked about this too. One of the reasons why these ships, they look like they've come off of a blueprint, is just because I've gotten so accustomed to building ships on Minecraft that you start to retain your patterns that you more than likely use most of the time. Maybe not in this specific case right here, because we're kind of just cheating and using the pattern that's directly below us. But in different sections of the ship, like when we're working on the neck, when we're working on the engines, or when we're working on sections of the lower hull, so much of that has come from my other ships. And you may not notice it right off rip, but look at my other builds, and then look back at the Enterprise D, and you'll probably notice some of that patterning is the same. Even though it's an entirely different shape, you can transition a lot of these patterns over ship to ship. And that's something that's actually been a pleasant surprise for me, because I said this when I first started working on the Enterprise D, that I wasn't sure, or I wasn't 100% confident that my the method that I used to build the Constitution class, if I'd be able to do that on a different class ship. And I tried it out first on the Cerritos. It worked out fairly well. And again, on the Enterprise D, this thing has come out awesome. It's so far exceeded my expectations on how it's looked so far. And of course, there's always areas that we're going to want to improve. I think that if I could pick 2 areas specifically that I just wasn't entirely happy with, or I thought that I could have done a little bit better on, that would have been specifically with the neck and the deflector dish area. Other than that, I'm pretty happy with how this thing came out. But even with that being said, if going back and building this thing again, I don't know if I could have necessarily have done the deflector dish or the neck any better than I did. I've seen other people, what they've done, and to each his own, but I just, I'm one of those people that, as far as Minecraft goes, I like to stick to the patterns for a reason. I think the ships look cleaner, I think they look better. I hate when I see builds and it's just a randomness, a random glob together to make it look like the shape. To me, when I see that, it looks like somebody uploaded blueprints for the ship, or uploaded a picture into some type of program and it rendered it out. And I'm not really a fan of that. But I think that this ship's looking pretty good. Kind of rambling on a little bit about that, but very happy with the progress that we've made thus far. But this thing, man, I tell you, it's gonna be a long build. We haven't even gotten the full saucer section done yet, and we're already on episode 54. But I'm not really trying to rush this thing to get it done. I'd rather do it right the first time than have to constantly go back and change things, because remember, no matter what, you're going to be making changes to the ship. But the more you rush, and the more that you don't take the time to plan these things out, the more likely that you are to go back and fix those mistakes. Like, for a perfect example, with our corridors, we ended up changing the color. If I would have maybe just taken my time a little bit more and maybe tested out the color scheme I was going to use, that could have saved me so much more time, as opposed to having to go back now and redo the color and swapping out those blocks. But this will now, it's going to be burned in my head, because I've done 2 levels now of corridors, technically twice, with swapping out the colors, that's going to be burned in my head when I do the next build. When I think about that, I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I should just take a minute next time and just think, okay, well, let's figure out what our color scheme is going to be. Let's figure out what works and what doesn't work. Let's build, build it out, see how it looks, and then let's do a couple of variations. And that's honestly how I used to do it. Like when I did my Constitution class, the Enterprise A, for example, I have like a little work area off to the side that I usually do for every build. I didn't do it for the Cerritos so much, and I didn't really do it for the Enterprise D, but I do have that area, and I encourage you to use that, like set an area off to the side too that you can experiment on a little bit. So this way maybe you don't jump the gun like I did here in this situation. Take your time with it, experiment, try out a couple of different building techniques, and what I mean by that is just build it a different way. And I'll give you a perfect example. Like when I did my corridors for the 2009 Enterprise, I did 4 variations of it, and out of the 4 variations, I picked my favorite one. And then after I got my variation down, I went back and I went through the color, and I did 4 variations of the color. based on that exact design. And then after that, I was able to come where fall where I wanted to land on. Now that's not always going to happen. Sometimes you'll get it exactly where you want it on the first time. But if you're not and you're having some trouble with it, try that technique, and I promise you, you will eventually fall on something that you will. Because when you build something and then you delete it, you don't necessarily have a reference to go off of. But when you're building, in this case, like 4 sections of a corridor in 4 different variations, you can compare them side by side and see what you like from one and maybe don't like from another one, and maybe figure out ways to merge those together, and you'll eventually fall on a place that you're happy with. This is what I do when I build my ships, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it anytime that you get stuck, because it will help you out. Now we're getting ready, getting back into what we got going on here, we're getting ready to hit that outline that's going to become our shuttle bay. I don't believe that we're going to be building the line back here. Or we might. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure, if I recall, I don't think that we did. I think I might have actually built it and then deleted it, at least in the middle section. I don't know if I deleted that later on or not. I think at this point, the main goal here is just to get our oval outline completed, going all the way around. Once we do that, we'll be in pretty good shape. And we're going to be coming up on the end of our episode here in just a moment. Alright, we got that backside done. The only thing left at this point is the front middle bar. And that's going to be the last thing that we do today. Alright. So, if you are so inclined to do so, you can go ahead and fill in between this row and this row. It's going to be the same height as our gray concrete, and we're just going to fill all this in. If you want to wait until we get to the next episode, I totally understand. I'm not going to lie, I would probably wait too, just to see what it looks like and just to verify that. But those of you who just want to jump ahead, feel free to do so. But I think that's going to wrap us up today. We've got a considerable amount done, and definitely excited to see where this build is going. She's definitely taking shape, and we're getting closer and closer into moving on to one of the best parts of this build, and that's going to be the interior. But anyway, I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. And don't forget, you can always catch my Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Thursdays. And if you have any questions regarding today's episode, or you need help, or you just want to say hey, or let me know which build you want me to do, be sure to drop a comment below. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. And hey, what did you make today in Minecraft? Be sure to drop a comment below and let me know. All right. Thank you all and have a great day.